Alright. 3v3 is interesting to break out. Let me talk you through this. Deck-wise, you're gonna want something that's balanced, but not where one of them is like a sacrifice niche pick. I'm not really gonna tell you what to run. I'm going to give you like how you want to build a deck if you want to build that and what you can use to do that. So there are many types of decks in this game. Some of them are better than others. Some of them kind of suck. Some of them require more skill, but some of them don't even work in this meta. But I'll kind of go over the main ones you're probably gonna want to run. Double attack is a really popular one. The reason why that double attack is super popular is because let's say you have 2 attack types and a stamina type. So that would be Shark Edge, Phoenix Wing. Oh hell no, Phoenix Wing. Phoenix Wing and Wizard Rod. Say this is my deck right here. Double attack is a really good starting point because when you have 2 attack types, you have like a lot of agency. You're able to do a lot more with your combos. You're able to score 3 points if you need to. You're able to get a KO if you need to. However, this is a more skill intensive type of deck, but this is kind of what's the standard basically. Double attack. Basic coverage is next. Basic coverage is going to be kind of like one of each type. This is a little harder in today's meta, but there is like kind of a workaround. The deck that I would recommend most for this setup is so Cobalt Dragoon, Phoenix Wing, and Wizard Rod. Cobalt Dragoon on like Glide. Cobalt Dragoon on Glide is actually a pretty solid defense type. Its left rotation means that when all the attack types are going this way, it's going this way, which means it's going to use its 38 grams to beat out like a Shark Edge 34. I recommend Goon Glide a lot because Goon Glide is just like a pretty good defense type. This is a little worse and a little harder to pull off in a 3v3 environment because you got to realize that you're using all your Beyblades in an order. So if I have an attack here, and let's say my opponent is running double attack, obviously it might not always work out like this, but you can kind of see if they just dodge the defense type, it's going to be useless, right? It's so important. In deck, you can kind of have it in your back pocket and use it whenever you need as kind of a protector or enforcer. But here it's more of like a scout, where you're throwing out defense. Maybe I recommend throwing out defense first, because at worst, defense is going to lose to a stamina type, and it's going to take a 1-point loss. It may even be able to beat an attack type, and this is important. People may look at defense and be like, no point, right? Stamina wins with 1 point. Defense also wins with 1 point. And stamina beats defense and is a lot easier to use. And if you have a stamina type like Wizard Rod that's like really easy to use and hard to beat, then yeah, this is kind of how it's going to go. The important part is it consistently beats the thing that gets 3 points and the thing that gets 3 points on the other thing that gets 1 point. So that's the important part. Don't think of it as this, right? Because if you think of defense as this, you're going to have a problem. You got to think of it as like a -3 for the opponent. Because they could have gotten 3 points. They could be at 3 points right now. This is where they could have been at if you didn't interfere with a defense type. And again, at worst, if you run a stamina type first, you might get this, but you're likely to get this if they have an attack type. Or again, it's like a 50-50. What do you want to risk? 1 or 3? You don't want to risk 3. It's not a good trade. The point I'm trying to make is defense is always only risking 1, so it's a safer counter pick to put in the beginning. Now, if they counter this, you're obviously going to be at a point deficit. But guess what? You wasted the Wizard Rod on your defense type. And that, again, that's how you counter it. That's not a particularly good thing to counter. How do I say this? You would much rather want to be on attack type with your stamina type. Attack versus stamina, that's guaranteed 100%. That's 100%. This right here is like 75. This thing sucks against this. If you beat them, you're beating the odds. If you're running traditional, I recommend running defense first. Defense first is super important. Again, it's all I mentioned. It's a good scout. If you lose, it's not as bad as if you lose with like a stamina type or an attack type. Because keep in mind, if you lose with a defense type, you're only losing an effective 1 point. You're losing a 1 point you could have gotten. So think of it as a -1 if you lose with a defense, and a -3 if you lose with an attack. That's kind of the important part. This just turned into a defense rant. I'm just saying use defense first, essentially. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because you kind of have to put your order out beforehand. So it doesn't really matter what you put here. It's kind of based on what you think your opponent's going to use. Whether you put your attack type or your stamina type next. I don't entirely recommend putting your stamina type before, like first. You know what? I think it's just easier if I tell you what I recommend as a deck. Alright. Here's what I recommend as a deck if you're running basic cover. Run your defense type first because it's a really good scout. It can only lose 1 point. It can deny an effective 3 points. It's only going to be gaining 1 point anyway. Use attack second because if you got 1 point here, then if you get an X, you can clean up with an easy 4 points. And finish the match here before your frail stamina type even has to come into play. If you lost the first match, you're in a little bit of a pickle, because you now know you're not going to have a stamina type that you could beat. Now this is good because there's no pressure to beat the stamina type. You're only going to have to deal with, maybe a defense type that's going to counter you, or another attack type. So that's the important thing. Being in this position is definitely a disadvantageous one comparatively, but it's a lot better than being a 3-0 right off the bat. Because if your attack is next, you might be able to get a 2 point, you might be able to win and get a lead here, or an even bigger lead here. And this is where your stamina type comes in. There are many combinations of values that this can work out. Let's say you even win the first one, and it plays out like this, and you get a KO in the second round. That's 3 points. You haven't won the match, but you're very close. Your stamina type comes in last. Your stamina type is going to be the sweeper. So you don't get an X finish, but you get a normal KO. Stamina cleans up and can get that 1 extra point. You can get that 1 extra point to clean it off in 1 rotation. Very helpful thing to have a stamina type last. Plus it's just an effective thing to have in the back pocket of your deck. It being last means it's less likely to run into a strong attack type, because they're also going to want their attack types in one of the first 2 slots to get those 2 points early. Now, if they're running double attack, this is a different story. Hopefully your defense type caught one of them. That's usually the hope. So that's basically what I recommend. If you know the opponent, don't go with this. Try to mix it up with something else. There are many other things you could go. It's all a rock, paper, scissors at the end of the day. Because again, let's take a look at this scenario. If they go stamina type, take me out here, then that sucks. And let's say they're running double attack. They go attack type here, and they beat me. That sucks for me, I'm in a deficit. And let's say they don't even beat me, but let's say that they get a spin finish, right? It's not too bad. They are at 2 points now. That sucks for me. And they could be at 3 points. Or again, it could be 1-1 or 1-2. Again, this is meant to make it up. But the big point is, if you have a stamina type here and they have an attack type here, then it really doesn't matter. As long as they got that stamina win, you're in danger. Because if they get 3 points, they're going to win the match. That's the thing about it, right? You can counter this strategy pretty simply. And again, even if you have a defense, that even works better because this point is more guaranteed as a win. You see what I mean? It's all counterable. And again, I can go another layer here. I can run my attack type first. I didn't expect that. It's a counter strat. I'm running something that's obviously not optimal for the sake of beating something that can beat the optimal thing. I run attack first. Okay, I beat their stamina type. That's awesome. Running stamina in the middle like a madman for no reason. That sucks. That's a terrible idea, but it counters this thing. And if I run my defense last, I counter their attempt to beat my late game stamina. All signs, it all works out. And notice how the point values, like, it doesn't really, it kind of works out no matter what. But this is where it gets important. This is where rotation comes in. The rotation is such an integral part because now you know what they have, you know what they're going to use, and you can see the point value. Let's take this scenario here. This is what we got to work with. We each got an identical deck, and let's say that the point value is slow game, 2-1. I have a bit of a choice to make. I can look at their point values and I can kind of determine what they're thinking about running, but I'm going to look at my own first. Looking at the fact that I'm at 2 and I know that 4 points is the win condition, if I get any sort of win with attack, I'll be at 4 points and I'll win the match. So it is smart to run my attack type first. So attack type first could be a good idea. However, I kind of realize my opponent sees this equally, and I know that they do have a defense type, so I'm thinking they might even want to run their defense type first. Because again, that's just a really good strategy. There's not really a reason for them not to. At most, they're losing 1 point. And yeah, losing 1 point would be really detrimental, so they might not want to do that, but it is a good strategy. I don't think it's the best one though. They got a bit of a choice to make, right? They don't know what I'm going to go with, but they can kind of infer based on the point values. Either going to be an attack or defense type. Stamina is a really bad option in this scenario because there's no way to eke out an easy win. 1 point from either side is not going to do anything. So stamina is off the table for being first at the very least. No one's going to run stamina first here in this scenario. Unless they're running it like a defense type, which again, that sucks. That's meta. If I run my attack type and they run their defense type, they're going to even up the score. That's good. But is that as good as you need? If they run their attack type, and we run their attack type, it's kind of even across the board, no advantage. Obviously, I have the advantage because I have more points. But they can actually, let's say they do win this with a KO, just a standard KO. Now they're at 3. That 1 point's important. Now, they haven't won the battle yet, but they are at a big point advantage. And they've taken out my only thing that can deal 2 damage. So I would need to win both of the next ones in order to prevent losing or prevent a reshuffle. Attack is a high risk, high reward play because you could just straight up lose doing this if they run attack. But yeah, it's a good way to dig yourself out of this grade. Or you could run your defense type. Defense is preventative. I think you're going to run something that's going to do bodily harm to me. I think you're going to make a power play, so I'm going to run defense. That's nice. I might not want to run attack right off the bat. It's kind of the obvious choice. They know I can clean up pretty quick. I lose my breadwinner, so I might want to run my defense type first. This kind of like, again, it's a 50-50 whoever's defense, but let's look at the more interesting scenario. Them running attack into our defense type. This is kind of what we want to hope for, but again, it's 50-50. It's all about your risk reward. Do you want to finish the match now, or do you want to play a more functional long game? Well, let's say I do this and I get 3-1. I have a choice. I can kind of think, do I want to have my stamina type next to potentially clean up this next point? Or do I want to have my attack type? If they stamina my defense type, I want to have some way to win the next battle quickly. So I could run defense into attack, or I could run defense into stamina for a more guaranteed win. It's really hard. It's a hard metagame, dude. This isn't easy stuff. So now that we've talked about 3v3 and the strategy, I want to talk about one little issue that I would want to change about it personally. And here's the issue. There's no pre-selection viewing phase, and this is a humongous deal. Deck has this, and that's why it's so good. But essentially what this is if you have 2 sides of the coin, you have 3 combos on this side and 3 combos on this side. This lets you see what combos that your opponent is running before you make a selection or order on what you're going to use. This is so important to 3v3 that it's not funny, and the fact it's not default is kind of baffling to me. You get this during the reshuffle phase, right? You can see the 3 combos, but you gotta realize the points matter here. If it's like a 3-1, seeing my opponent's combos doesn't really matter that much, like, as it would have if I were to see, because I didn't have a way to shape this 3-1. For example, if I see 2 attack types and a stamina type right off the bat, or more accurately which ones they are, I can very much assume an order in the same way I would assume an order based off the reshuffle. The issue is that it makes you solve for 2 unknown variables, and it's unreasonable to do so, consistently and strategically. You have to first guess what 3 combos they're going to be using. Then, once you've guessed those 3 combos, you just have to assume you're right. If you're wrong, any strategy from here crumbles. Let's say they go anything else besides this, you crumble. But let's say, in the bunch of timelines they could go, they go this timeline. This is the correct timeline you choose. And now you have to make an order off of that. Okay, but as we've already discussed via 3v3, that order selection phase is not easy. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of knowing what they already have and using that information to select an order. But it's not really counterplay if they choose something I can't see and then they choose an order that counters me. That's not strategic. If I have no clue what they're going to use, then me putting my Beyblades in an order that counters them is luck. You can't choose an order based off no information. If, for example, I know I'm right, I know they're going to be using double attack, and I know what exact combos they're going to use, then I can use my previously established deck to make what I think will counter that. Obviously, you can predict, and you can predict correctly, but the level of prediction with the little information you have to make, you can't actually be accurate with that level of information consistently. So yeah, that's kind of my rant for the bad part of 3v3 over. I just think this should be standard. It just kind of makes sense that you see what bays you're trying to pick an order for in a competitive game. I don't know why you have to make 2 blind assessments based off nothing, when you'd only be able to make one of those blind assessments off the information the other one gives you. But yeah, rant over. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm really glad that you stuck with this. I hope you enjoyed this type of content. This is pretty much what I'm gonna be pumping out. Please like and comment below. Tell me your favorite deck. Tell me any strategies that you think would be pretty good. And then just anything, any questions you want to ask. I'm Dr.bladekid. I actually have all the information in the planet. I am the inventor of Beyblade. I created the sport myself in 3,000 years ago, Beygoma. So yeah, Bladekid, going back to the lab.